Welcome to the Centre for Independent Studies. My name is Luke Malpass, and today I'm talking about my new paper. It's an issue analysis titled The Decade-long Binge, How Governments Squandered 10 Years of Economic Prosperity. The basic thesis is as follows. Over the last decade, New Zealand government spending has increased greatly. It has doubled in nominal terms from about $35 billion to 70.5. In real terms, counting for inflation, it's an increase of 57% over a decade. A very staggering increase. What this paper tries to explore is, what did we get for this money? The theory behind the great social expenditure by the previous Clark government and now continued by the Key government was that this would make New Zealand a better place, more compassionate, more generous, and aid social progress. However, according to most social indicators that we look at, progress has been little or not at all. And in some areas, such as health, productivity growth has been woefully low. So for the extra spending, life for New Zealanders perhaps has got a little bit better, but really not better to the extent that you would expect for the sort of expenditure. Now, if you break it down to particularly the big three spending areas in government, which are health, education, and social security welfare, there have been big increases. Health spending increased from 6.6 billion to 13.5. Education spending increased from 6.1 billion to 11.7, and social security and welfare increased from 13.2 billion to 21.2 billion over the decade. These three areas of spending make up 70% of government expenditure, yet broadly across all sides of politics, they are the areas that are ring-fenced from any cuts that might occur due to trying to trim the budget or respond to recession. But these obviously are areas that have increased greatly. The paper also argues that and points out that core government spending's increased from 29 to 35% of the economy. This year, government's share of GDP is a staggering 50%, but that is only because of the earthquake. It's actually at about 45%, but that is staggering, and that is higher levels than under the much maligned Muldoon government of the late 70s and early 1980s. A lot of this cash is simply churned. It is people pay taxes and then they get back those taxes in services in kind from the government, less the amount of money it actually takes to run the bureaucracy and churn the cash back to people who need it. There's been clear spending items such as public sector pay rates, which have increased at a greater level to private sector pay rates, and over the 10 years from 2000 to 2010, there was an increase in central public servants in Wellington by about 10,000. And on the other side of the ledger, how to actually pay for these, the tradable sector of the New Zealand economy, or the real productive part of the economy, has been in recession since 2004-05. So on the one hand, you've had the government sector going like this since 2005, but on the other hand, the real economy that actually makes the money and generates the wealth to pay for these services has been going like this. This was disguised until 2008 by high levels of government spending after 2005. By comparison, the biggest spending government in Australian history at the moment, the Rudd and the Gillard government, still has a lower level of government expenditure to GDP, and this is partly because of a higher private provision of social services. So the question the paper really poses in looking at these indicators is life much better in New Zealand than it was a decade ago? Now, aside from marginal change in the poverty rate, which has improved, which is really good news, most of the social indicators that we have looked at across health, across education, across social welfare, have not improved greatly, and if at all. And this should be of great concern to New Zealanders, considering this enormous increase in government spending that's supposed to make life much better for us all. So, the Decade-long Binge, I would recommend that you read it. I would recommend that you have a look at the figures. They're quite staggering. And I think it is a sobering look at what governments it is a sobering look at what government in New Zealand can actually achieve. Politicians across the spectrum in New Zealand are wedded to the idea of the activist welfare state, but they shouldn't only just ask what it should do, but what it can actually achieve when it is put to try and to fix certain social issues. So I recommend you read it. Please log on to the website www.cis.org.nz. Thank you.